2 seconds. And we are live. Hey guys, welcome back to Real Talk with Andres and Heather. The podcast is all about real conversations, real experiences, and real growth. Our guest today is Veronica Holland, a woman whose story is noted in faith, resilience, and purpose. She's a breast cancer survivor, an MBA, and author of Survivor to CEO. She's a powerful voice helping others build purpose driven lives and businesses. Welcome, Veronica. We're so excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you so much. It is truly a blessing and a pleasure to be here with you on this morning.
Pleasure is ours to have you. And Veronica, before we dive into who you are and the story today, what is one takeaway that you want our audience to take from our conversation?
Well, what I would encourage your audience to walk in, to embrace, is to trust God in the valleys, in the low places, in the challenging places, in the times of trial and testing, to trust God and to continue to push through to the other side.
Wow, powerful, powerful. Excited to hear all about it. Excited to dive into your story, and and as we see here, before we get started, and for those who don't know you yet, who is Veronica at her core?
Well, I am an ambassador of Christ. I am a minister. I am a mom, an MBA. I'm starting a new business. And I am a voice that is being used by God to share with others that you can go through a very challenging time in your life, a very challenging period, and come out on the other side victorious. But it's so critical that faith is at your center, at your core.
Absolutely, absolutely. What what was the moment that shifted everything for you personally and professionally?
I would say that moment was the end of July 2023. At the end of July, my oldest sister had passed away from heart problems. During the week that I was on bereavement leave, myself and our younger sister, she went in to have a mammogram. And I was overdue for a mammogram myself. And so I said, let me go ahead and take care of this. Well, on that Friday, after I had the exam, the doctor came into the exam room there at Kaiser and told me that there was a problem. They had found some abnormalities and that I needed to have further testing, that they were going to need to do what is called a biopsy, take a tissue sample, because he believed that it was breast cancer. So that was a moment of just shock, surprise. I didn't really know what to do. I was sort of frozen. And it certainly was a pivotal moment in my life, a very pivotal moment, because what was going to come over the next 1.5 years of treatment was going to be a major shift professionally, as well as personally, certainly physically and emotionally.
Was the passing of your sister what that was the reason that led you to make that appointment, and then you found that out? How did you handle psychologically that you're just dealing with the passing of your sister, and now it's like it kind of puts your own mortality like in
Yeah.
focus right there.
Yeah, it was almost surreal. I mean, it was something that was just so visceral. I really had to compartmentalize it. And I think it took me really several months for me to really start addressing the loss of my sister, because I was literally now in a battle where I'm trying to get this necessary treatment. I have a very serious disease that I'm dealing with. And that took so much of my energy and my focus and my thought. And I really couldn't properly grieve, I believe, at that time because of what I was experiencing.
Yeah.
Can imagine. You mentioned you're ambassador of faith. How has your faith carried you through the hardest season of your life?
Well, my faith was pivotal, it was critical and necessary because I knew that I had a lot in front of me. Um, when we sat down with the doctor, it was myself, my younger sister, and my mother. We sat down with the oncologist, and she said, here's what we're going to do as the course of treatment. This is the standard standard of care for breast cancer. And by the way, when I went for my first biopsy, not only did I have a lump on the right side, right before the morning of the biopsy, a new tumor appeared on the left side. So I now had bilateral cancer that also had spread to my lymph nodes on both sides. So the standard of care that we talked about it with the oncologist, and it was going to be a lot. There was a lot that I was going to have to go through. And so I, of course, cried out to God because I was, this was so much that I knew I was going to have to go through. They were, very adamant about needing to have chemotherapy, surgery, or a mastectomy or a lumpectomy with radiation. So there were going to be a lot of pieces to this. And so I had to cry out to God because I knew there was no way I was going to get through this by myself. I knew there was no way I could process this by myself. God was going to have to be there carrying me through this process, through every step of the way.
Is that something that can, when you find out about the other tumor, uh, can you walk us through your feelings during that moment? Can you walk us through what was coming through your head, like on that instant? No, I feel like there was so much, and yet you had to put yourself grounded. Can you walk us? Can you paint that picture for us?
That was the Psalm 23 moment. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, thou art with me. Because I literally woke up. This was about 2 days before the biopsy was scheduled at Kaiser for the right breast. And literally, when I was in the bathroom looking in the mirror, I noticed something that looked odd. And I pressed on my chest, and literally, there was a lump there that wasn't there the day before. So I'm in shock. I'm in disbelief. I'm sort of in horror. I'm just like, wait, how can this be happening? How can a new lump, which was a tumor, a cancerous tumor, just appear like that? But it wasn't there a couple days before. So I'm just like, now I'm in shock, disbelief. I'm confused. I'm like, okay, now what? Now what's the next step that's going to happen? Because now not only do they have to try to distinguish what's happening with the right side and get the confirmation, now I have to tell them. And that's what I had to do when I went in to talk to them about doing the biopsy and they're getting ready to take a tissue sample. I have to tell them, yeah, by the way, I woke up yesterday with a new lump on the opposite side, on the left side. So it was just something that my mind, I don't think in my normal conscious mind, it was something that you could really process fully without there being some grace of God that's keeping me grounded, that's helping me not just crumple to the ground and just give up and say, I can't deal with this.
But
Yeah.
the timing of that, thank God you did find out, and you found that before the appointment, before you were like being treated for the other one, and you already had the game plan, and then it just kind of went unnoticed because so much else was going on. I mean, that I know in that moment it probably did not feel like a blessing. It probably felt like, are you kidding me? This has to be a joke or a dream. But in a weird sense, I say it almost is a blessing because you found it before and you were able to just take care of it all in that one appointment and say, oh yeah, I found something else too.
What was their
Precisely.
reaction when you told them?
The nurse kind of first looked like, "Oh, wow." But then it was like, "Okay, well, you know what? We're going to go ahead and we'll take samples from both sides. We'll do the exam, we'll take samples from both sides." So basically everything got adjusted now from being one-sided to what they call bilateral, which is both sides. So everything got done, it was twice now. We're going to do it for both sides. And that's just pretty much how everything got adjusted, was to treat it as bilateral now instead of a single side.
And I gotta say, you so courageous the way you approach it, the way you looked at strength beyond yourself to ground it, to be grounded, to approach it the best way you could, and confront it right then and there. For so many people that could be in a situation like that, what can you tell them directly when, if they come across a situation like this, what can they do to comfort themselves and be able to process the information, process what's happening, and be able to take the best course of action in that moment? Because not everyone can be as grounded as you were, and confident to be able to move forward and face what's in front of them. It's not easy.
It's not easy, and I mean, it definitely wasn't an easy process for myself either. I think what you have to do is first just take a moment and breathe. You have to breathe. I remember being outside, and it was a beautiful day. This was July, so it's beautiful. It's very warm. It's sunny, right? Everyone's walking around happy and cheerful, and I just got some of the worst news of my life. And I remember standing there, and I had to take a moment and breathe because my head was spinning. I was standing on the curb waiting for a lift, and I couldn't even really process. I had to stand there in that courtyard amongst all of the laughing and giggling and people going about their business and going about their day, and I had to breathe. So I think it's critical that you take a moment and you pause. And that's when you have to start talking to God. And you have to start remembering those verses that you've studied as a believer, where God has said he'll never leave you nor forsake you, where it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, where it says all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. So you have to call on those scriptures because you have to make them alive for you. But you also have to start talking to God and say, I'm scared. I don't know what's going on here. Lord, help me right now. It's okay to call out to God. And literally, that's what we need to do is call out to God. We never want to think that we're just so strong and we just are elevated to a place where we can't call out to God, where you just, it might even be as simple as just saying Jesus, because he knows what we're going to ask for even before we ask it. He knows what we're going to cry out to him for. So if you can't say anything else, just say Jesus.
Absolutely. I read something on a book recently that we're so hard on ourselves. We need to be more compassionate to ourselves. We are faced with situations where we're like, I should have done that. I could have done this. I need to be better. But we need to have a level of compassion to ourselves to be able to accept some things that happen and be able to move forward and ask for help, right? And oftentimes we don't. We think we can face everything that's in front of us alone, and whether that's spiritually, whether you have a friend you can call, whether you have your mom, your dad, anyone, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to sit down and look at the moment, praise God, call on someone to be able to listen and help you out. And we can't. It's hard for us to develop that compassion within ourselves. Have you seen that in your work? Have you seen come across? And like you said, you sit down, calling to God, praise, because you need a strength in that moment to be able to get through and just ground yourself amongst the joy that's around you.
Mhm. Yeah, I think part of it is that we're not used to doing self-care, and self-care is almost like a bad word, because we're so accustomed to being go-getters. A lot of us are go-getters. We multitask. We have a lot that we do. I'm a single mother. I have a teenage son, so we have so many balls that we're juggling in the air. We have so much that we're doing, and a lot of times we're caring for other people in many different ways, in our family, in our home, our friends, our church, our job. We're caregivers. We're very empathetic and kind and loving, and so we don't really take time for ourselves. And that's where it's hard to shift. But when you come upon a serious medical issue like this, there's going to be a time when you have to do a shift, when you're going to have to start looking at self care, when you're going to have to start looking at taking a pause and taking a moment. And that is why it is very critical to have family, to have friends. Sometimes your friends really are like your family, but your friends, your family, a support network of people, because there are going to be people that may need to bring you meals. There may be people that need to sit with you. When I went through chemotherapy, it was my mother and my sister alternating. But you're going to need other people. But ultimately, the number one that you're going to need is God, because when you're lying in the bed at 12 o'clock midnight or 5 o'clock in the morning, you can't sleep, your mind is racing, your mind is thinking, you're thinking about what you've gone through and what is yet to come. You're going to need to be able to converse with God in a real relationship, beyond religion, but into a relationship where you tell God, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling. I need your help. I need your strength. I don't know if I can do this. I think I can, but I don't know. But I need you to help me get through this.
That was my next question. You basically just answered it. I was going to say, going back to what you said about when you were standing there and you just found out this. Your world is rocked, but everybody else is, the birds are chirping, they're smiling, they're laughing, but you're like screaming, like, how are you guys happy? I just found out like my whole world is changing, and that you're planning birthday parties and going to the beach. When you found that out, then, and now that like you have this battle ahead of you now, all, like you said, the chemos, you have all the stuff you're going to have to do, surgeries, but you're also a mom. You also have to keep that, those lights on, the gas paid, the rent, the mortgage, the car payment, everything still has to take place. So you seem like you had a very strong system support group around you with your family and your friends. Was there ever a time where you were just like not able to see a way out, or questioned it, or it was just too hard, where things were just like caving in on you?
I think, and I thank God for my family, my friends, church folks that, were there for me. I just had a lot of, I think, exemplary people that were there to support me. And sometimes you don't even know how great of a support system you have until you get in the midst of, a trial like this. My coworkers, my boss literally said to me, because at the time this happened, I was a hybrid worker. So part of the week you're in working from home, part of the week you're in the office, downtown Portland, Oregon. And I worked in the tallest building in downtown Portland, way up high. And he said, hey, whatever is easiest for you, you work from wherever works for you. And so that just lifted so much off of me, because I knew, with me, of course, going through chemo, my immune system's going to be compromised. And also there's going to be days, of course, you don't feel great. Working from home, that was just so pivotal and so critical in the process. And so it just really helped having all of these different folks that just stepped up and said, well, I help with this, or I'll help with that. My sweetie, who wasn't my sweetie at the time, he was my friend. But one thing he would do is every week he would check on me, and he would check in. We would do FaceTiming, like, how are you doing? Because some of the time I wouldn't be able to go to church. I had to start alternating to protect my immune system. So one week I would go to church in person with a mask, sanitizer. The next week I would watch church online through our live stream. And he would check in, say, how you doing? I know you weren't able to come to church today. How are you doing? Let's FaceTime. And it's just the many little things that are just critical, that make such a difference, that you don't realize how much they are. Someone offering to bring you meals. Even my neighbors, when they're finding out, oh my goodness, you're going through. One of my neighbors started telling me the story of how she had overcome cancer 20 some years before. And she literally was going through the same oncology office that I was going through. So it's like the little things, they're little, but they're really big. They really add up, in terms of helping to firm you and get through this process.
Absolutely. I always believe that little details make a big difference in our life, and oftentimes they go overlooked. Right.
Mhm.
When we can fast forward to your book, Survivor to CEO, what inspired you to write the Survivor just CEO?
Well, it's so interesting, because when I was first getting ready to start chemotherapy, my sister said, you should journal about your experience and what you're going through. And my sister is really big on buying things like journals, things you can write, where you can write. And at the time, I remember this. I was thinking, I don't want to journal about this. I don't even want to be going through this. So my mind was so averse to it at the time. It was like, it's not even an option. And my sister, I really think, in a prophetic sense, she knew she was planting the seed, because this was something that was going to happen in the future. So months and months and months went by. I didn't write a thing. And then when I finished my active treatment, I really felt this compulsion, this urge to say, you got to share about what you went through, because and she told me, this is bigger than you. Your story isn't just for you. And it's like, you're so right. My story isn't just for me. And it's not just about women that have gone through breast cancer, or men, because men also can have breast cancer. But really, it's about anyone who is going through something, has gone through a serious trial and a test and a challenge, to know that you can get through the other side. And I said, when I tell the story, I'm going to include the pictures, so you can see when I lost all of my hair. My whole face broke out in acne. I had neuropathy in my right foot at one time. I went through a few sessions of chemotherapy where I was in the restroom vomiting, couldn't stop. Um, So I said, I'm going to give it the authentic, real, this is what I went through. But I want to talk about through the whole process, how God had me and got me to the other side. And so the impetus was, you made it through this. How dare you sit on your testimony? How dare you sit on the story of what God brought you through as a double breast cancer survivor and not talk about the glory of God shining through this experience?
Absolutely. And I'm glad your sister told you to journal, right? I think that's an important aspect of our life that we often overlooked. And if I can relate that, Jim Rohn, I listen to a lot of his stories, mentorship. I started implementing this in my life where I'm journaling for the past at the end of the year on what I accomplished this year, right? And this is
Mhm.
for self development, that we don't realize the impact that it has down the road and the impact that it has on us, and not just us, but those around us and others. Like your book, making an impact on others. So I started journaling at the end of the year, and I'm doing so now every end of the month, reflecting. Because if we don't journal, we don't put down what we accomplish. How are we going to get better if we don't look into ourselves consistently? How do we know we're getting better? So I started doing that. And like you said, at the end of some time, n- now you can reflect upon that and see how much you have grown. You got an opportunity to put this book together, to share your experience, to share with other your what you went through, and help inspire others to move forward and do the same things, because they may have gone through some challenges that they have a story to tell that they don't know. People don't realize they have a story to tell because of what they went through, that like you are making a significant impact in other people's life. So definitely thankful for your sister to encourage you to write this and come up with this book, because we're sitting here today learning from you and sharing the story. And that's a huge thing that we need to take into consideration more often, is journal, even if it's about ourselves, to get better consistently. Um, were there moments in where your faith, I mean, can you unpack what a purpose driven business really looks like once you put that together?
Well, in writing the book, I wanted to tell my story. But one of the things that is pivotal, and I feel like particularly for women, for people of color, for women of color, and just anyone, it's critical to have more than one income stream. But we don't want to just be looking at just making money for the sake of making money. What we want to do is we want to make an impact as well as making income. And so one of the things that I discovered through writing this book is that, it's important to connect with other women who have a story to tell. Now, of course, the story may not be about breast cancer, but it may be about a challenge that you went through health wise. It may be that you want to share a skill. Let's say you're an RN and you started a home health agency. And you want to help other men or women learn how to start their own home health agency so they can expand their income and step into something new. It may be that you have a book of life lessons that you want to share. Mom life lessons, raising an autistic child, for an example. So it really sparked something in me where, I wanted to try to reach out to other women and help other women bring out their story. But what's critical, I think, in any line of business is that as believers, certainly, that we're doing what God has instructed us to do. He's called us to a particular niche. We can be business people, but we can be purpose-driven business people that are wanting to help people earn income and expand the kingdom of God. And so that is something that is critical about what I'm doing, because what I'm doing in terms of connecting with women, starting with workshopping next week, starting with coaching, one-on-one coaching, group coaching in the next 8 weeks, is to really focus on, again, what is the story? What is it that God has called you specifically to? The purpose driven part is the foundation of it, and it has to be integral to what we're doing. And that is critical for me, is that it is purpose centric. It has to be purpose centered.
And that purpose could be different for each one, right? That message could be different for each person that comes through. It's a matter of finding what that is and be able to execute it and put it out there, because like you said, it's purpose driven, and you are going to be able to help so many other people. I think we oftentimes we try to develop a product for somebody, for an ideal client, right? Not realizing that the ideal client is ourselves. So many other people relate to us personally, based on their experiences, based on what we have done through. That is the best thing to make.
Now, with
Absolutely.
what you do with coaching and helping women, so let's say there's somebody who they're a survivor of life circumstances and they have a story to tell. Where when they're at the spot where you were, where they're like, okay, I have a story to tell, I don't know how to tell it. Is that something that you can help them with because you've already walked that walk and you know how to get them from survivor to CEO?
Absolutely. And the great thing about coaching is you don't have to be 20 steps ahead of someone. You just need to be one step ahead of them, one or two steps, where you can say, okay, I've already done these two steps. Now you start your step one. I'm at three. Now you're at three. I'm at five. So, really, I have a framework that is, centered in helping you focus on what is that story that God has for you to write. Because what mine is really helping women in particular write your story, and it's a digital product, right? But then after that initial product, there may be additional products. Let's say you start with an ebook. Now you've added a journal. Now you've added a workbook. Maybe now you're going to add a course. So there's a spectrum of different products that you may be creating. Again, it's in that same purpose centric program, but it really has to start with a framework for anything. If you're going to create something and you're going to try to coach other folks, teach other people, you got to have a framework. You have to know, how can you do what I did? You have to be able to show them tangibly. And so that's what the framework is for, is to help bring this story. And again, it's not a story that you're just thinking up on the fly or right now. This is something that you know that God has called you to. And when God implants something in you, he's going to help bring it out of you. So like Habakkuk, you're going to write the vision and make it plain. You're going to start writing, what is it that God already put in me? What is the story that I feel compelled? What are the things that people are always asking me to help them with? What are the things that really get me worked up about that I want to help fix for the kingdom? These are the type of things where we start stirring that up and looking at what is it that God wants you to share. And then once you focus on that one thing, then we start bringing it out. How is it that we can bring this story out of you with a simple but effective framework?
For someone, I think that that is great. Uh, for someone who has a story, but they are afraid of telling the story. They may feel embarrassed to tell the story. They have they're very conservative. They don't want to put themselves. They don't want to feel vulnerable. They don't want to open up, and that's hard to do for some people. For a lot of us, right?
Hmm.
We don't want to face our problems. We don't want to face ourselves in the mirror. How do you approach someone? How do you help someone open up and say, "Hey, it's okay. It's your story, but like we said at the beginning, it's no longer about you. That story. It's okay telling it. It's okay to open up. But how you do? How do you bring somebody to come to fruition and say and talk to you about it?
Hmm. I think the first thing that's critical is that you are healed of this. If it is a particular trauma or something that's very challenging for you to talk about, we want to first make sure that you're healed, because if you're not healed, you're not ready to tell the story yet. Because we're telling stories of overcoming and being victorious, and you have to already have believed that and know that in your spirit that you have overcome this situation. So it's critical first that you are healed. You're healed through asking Jesus to heal you of this trauma, but also if you need to talk to a licensed professional. God has people that are Christian therapists and professionals that can help us if we've gone through particular traumas that are kind of stifling our life, that are hindering us. So you first want to be in a place of being healed. But again, if God has implanted this in you, he is going to help provide the means, the mode, the connections, the pathway for you to bring this story out. Because ultimately, what we're focusing on is not so much the challenge, but the one who helps you overcome the challenge and the victory. So, but we have to be in a place where we're healed. Because if we're not, every time we go to write, it's going to trigger us. And
Yeah.
so it will be very difficult for you to get through this story if it's not a story that you're healed from.
I,
Now, healed
I,
doesn't mean that there's no emotions, right? Healed doesn't mean that you don't think
Mhm.
about something and, get sad or get scared or worried. Can you explain the difference between that and being healed? Like what being healed actually is? Because I know a lot of people think if you're healed, that means you can talk about something with no emotions and it's fine and you're ready to like move past it, like people say. So, what would healed be in the eyes of this?
Mhm. Well, healing is the going through the fire, but coming through it. It's not pretending there wasn't a fire, right? I think about with the three Hebrew boys, the story of the three Hebrew boys, as we say, in Daniel 3, and they get thrown into this fiery furnace, and then he looks and there's four. I put three in, but I see four, and the fourth looks like the Son of God. And they come out of there and they're completely unsinged. Now they went through a fire, they went through a trial. You don't want to pretend that there wasn't a trial. That really was a fire that could have killed them. But it's the Jesus that sustained them. So the healing isn't the absence of saying, this was hard, it was difficult, it was challenging, it wasn't pleasant. I mean, I wouldn't tell anyone that losing all of my hair, because I loved my hair, um, losing all of my hair, down to about three strands, having my face completely break out in acne, the whole face, neuropathy in my right foot. These kind of things were not pleasant. Vomiting, all of those things. You can't sugarcoat that. You have to be real and authentic and transparent that these were not pleasant things, but they were necessary things. So I think again, healing is not the absence of something being uncomfortable or being a challenge or that it was problematic, but it's that you got to the other side. That's ultimately what we want to illustrate, is not that people aren't going to go through problems, not that not going to have challenges, but it's the I can do all things through Christ that's going to get us through that fiery furnace.
Absolutely, I strongly believed in that. For a while, my dad passed away 5 years ago today, and first 3 years, always wanted to write a letter before he passed away. And my first 3 years, every time I sat down to write that, I could not. I would write maybe a sentence, three sentence, and I would have to step away because I could not contain my tears. I could not contain my emotions. So definitely, you have to walk through that path and face yourself, face the things that are in front of you, because you can only move forward so much if you're not facing that, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to mention is you mentioned earlier to generate additional source of income for the
Yes.
women that you're helping. How do you integrate purpose and profit in your work as a business leader and helping women generate additional income in that process?
Well, I have a very strong heart for women. Women are really, that is who I'm called to serve. And in particular, healing women, being able to thrive, that is really critical. That's the passion that God put in me. All of us have a particular group that's really our niche, is really our group that God has called us to. And it's not going to be the same for everybody, because I love kids, but youth is not my focus group. So I think, with women, one thing is that we deal with is that we, in general, at least in this country, and certainly others, we earn less on average than men do. And if you break that down into women of color, it's even less. It's critical, whether you're a man or a woman, to have multiple income streams. We see how chaotic our financial systems have been. We see many people have been laid off in 2025, 2026. We see how important it is to be to be dependent upon more than one income stream, because what if something happens to your mainstream and now you're down to nothing? We don't want to be in that situation. That's a very vulnerable position to be in. So it's something that is good for us as adults to recognize, and to also even teach children. Hey, you might have a lemonade stand and you may have something else going on, but it's good to have multiple income streams. And so what's critical for me with my focus group of women is really helping women, because I'm a single mother. And so I don't necessarily have the finances that some folks have. I mean, even if you're a single father, even if you don't have children, you may not be a millionaire, or I'll say millionaire yet. And so finances may be tight. And so I think it's very important that women that we cultivate more than one income stream. And through writing this book, this is a means, but it's not necessarily just that you have to write a book. There may be something different that God may be calling you to do that's not writing a digital book, an ebook, but it's another income stream that He's calling you into that will not only, again, have impact, but it will help your family to augment your finances so that if, Lord forbid, you get that pink slip, you get the downsizing. I remember one time when I was working, had first started working for a particular medical company, and we had a major financial mishap that had happened, and we were down to 1 day's worth of cash in the bank. And it was really a critical time, and there were some changes, adjustments that were made, but they made some major adjustments in terms of leadership. And then they brought in a company who analyzed our company and decided that we needed to get rid of 20% of our employees. And so every single department had to have layoffs, and it was very painful because some people had been there 10 years, 20 years. Everybody felt the impact of it because every department was going to lose people, and everybody, we didn't know who was going to be the one chosen to be let go. So it's really critical that we have more than one income stream, that we are looking to God for where else can I, be able to create income and create impact. And sometimes what happens is God leads us into what we call a side hustle. That side hustle really is going to become our main hustle, or should I say our main income stream, our business, what He has really birthed in us to walk into. And so at the time, it may seem like, oh, I'm doing this out of frustration because I don't, my income is limited or lacking. But really, what it is God is birthing us into something that He always had wanted us to do. And we just have to step into it.
And He'll bless that as you're doing His work. He's going to bless that, which is why you're going to see
Yes.
success in what you're
Yes.
doing. When you were talking about right now, it makes me think of that saying that you're only one accident away from being homeless. A lot of people are one bad accident away from being homeless. And that's really true, especially now when like orange juice is $8 a gallon.
Oof.
You don't have to be you have to be a millionaire these days to
Right.
drink some orange juice.
Yes. Eggs and milk and yeah.
Seriously, it's incredible because it's so hard to change someone else's paradigm. So for them to they grew up seeing their family, their parents, their grandparents doing certain activities for work. Growing up, um, you know, our parents raised us the best they could with the resources they could. It's hard sometimes for us to understand that given the circumstance because we tend to be a little selfish growing up, right? As a kid, we want to focus on us. We want what we want and that's it, you know? And but understanding our parents' paradigm and why they were acting and did the things they did, it's so hard for us. And we see these generation after generation where, like I said, they have one source of income. They whether they go to college, get their education, have their careers. A lot of people focus on that one, and that's it, right? And it's so hard for them to look elsewhere, to do other activities, to generate additional income, uh, and also at the same time, as entrepreneurs, uh, it's hard for people to treat their business as a business, treat themselves as an employee. I'm a real estate agent. Heather's a real estate agent. We see so many agents drop out of the business because they don't treat themselves as an employee and they think a lot of things are going to come to them. So, changing that mentality to be able to generate additional income, but also having the discipline to stay focused and do the activities that are going to help you generate the income, get the right things done. How do you navigate on people that come to you for help, for assistance, for guidance, to be able to move forward because they want to do it, but they're stuck. They feel stuck. They feel like they have no direction, right?
I think that's where it's critical. And, I'm just getting started. But what I would say is it all comes back to you want to be listening to God. You want to be getting your guidance from God. The Bible tells us to commit our plans to the Lord. We have to be in conversation and doing mostly listening. Because, see, when God again gives you a vision, when He calls you to something, where He gives you a vision, He's going to give you the provision. So he's going to give you people to connect to. When I started moving into this realm of where I'm going to be coaching, where I speak, where I'm writing, God brought someone into my life to be my coach, because everyone, when you get to a certain level, you need, and even if you're not on a super high financial level, but you need coaches. Even coaches have their own coaches, because there's someone that's at least 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. So you need that person to kind of help guide you, to kind of help keep you on the path. But that's why it's critical that we're asking God, what is it that you would have me to do? What is my purpose? See, because a lot of times we do stuff based upon what we like, what our friends did. Sometimes we do a repetition because it's a legacy. Oh, my father owned this convenience store, so I'm going to own the convenience store. But what if God wasn't calling you to convenience store? What if, again, God was calling you to be a coach with children, to help with special education with autistic children? You want to make sure that you're in the lane that God specifically called you to. And that's why it's critical that we are in a stance where we're saying, God, what is it where you would have for me to do? Because then when he tells you, this is what I would have for you to do, this is what I'm calling you to, he will begin to align you with the right people that can help guide you, that will make connections, that will lead you further into this calling, so that you're not just going, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start. I think when we feel that, that is a sign that we're not conversing with God, that we're not asking him for direction and guidance. In Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him. So talk to him, and he will direct your paths. You're never going to go off a path or off track if you're actually following God. So that's the critical piece, is because I know as Americans, we're go-getters, and they like to believe in this: pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you're like a one man or one woman island. But it's really critical, because we're believers, that we are listening to God and asking him where it is that you would want to plant me. And then when he plants us, we will see the fruit emanate from that. We will see the fruit as proof that this is where God wanted us to be.
Amen. We oftentimes find problems that are not even there yet.
Hmm.
We look for objections for things that we haven't even started doing the work, and we're looking for problems that have never come up. And yet, when you put yourself out there, the right people automatically come up into your life to help you find solutions.
We like to
It-
throw up those roadblocks because I'm like, oh, well, I was going to do it, but I can't because of this. So I'm
Hmm.
not even going to bother. I like to put
Yeah,
those in the way of our
we have
progress.
angst. We have procrastination. We have what's called imposter syndrome. We feel like, oh, how could I do that? We may look at other people and say, for example, y'all are real estate agents, and I'm sure you're very good at this. But you may look at someone who's been doing this longer and think, wow, can I really do what they've done? Can I sell $50 million worth of houses? But we have to believe that. Because again, if God has called us to it, we have to believe I can be the very best. I can run with the big dogs. I can be at the top of my field. I can make that happen. And it's not in a way of being like braggy about ourselves, because again, it's God that is the catalyst. He is the impetus. And then as we are successful, success is not a bad word. So we can't believe that as kingdom members, as believers, that success is not a bad word. Because as we're successful, there are things that God is going to use us to do to bless other people. So, for example, when you have this multi-million dollar business, then it's like, look, I can open up, I can help with creating housing. I can help feed people. I can help clothe people. There's all these different things. Maybe you're called to start a church. Maybe you're called to help start a medical clinic in a particular underserved area. So the success, God is sending us these visions and ideas and businesses, tech ideas, so that we can be in the marketplace, so that we're not just there getting a whole bunch of money so we can buy $100 million yacht, which I'm sure is very nice, but so that we can really help people and have an impression and an imprint on this world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell us about your digital publishing initiative. Uh, what gap were you trying to fill there?
Well, I really want women to feel confident in sharing their story. I think digitally, It's so accessible now. There was a time when you literally had to go through a publishing house. If you weren't going through Random House or Simon and Schuster or the big publishing companies that mainly are centered in New York City, you weren't going to be able to get a book published. Now we have so many options, and it's free for you to publish on Kindle, on Amazon Kindle, or KDP as they call it. And so it's so accessible now, and it's so simplistic. And so for me, it's like this is just such a pivotal time. We're called for such a time as this, like Esther, right? For such a time as this, for me, it's reaching out to women and saying, hey, I got a framework for you. You've got a story inside you. We're going to put this together. It's like there used to be a cartoon when I was a kid called Wonder Twins, and they would put their hands together and they would say, Wonder Twins, powers activate. And so you put those two together, but really in a tangible, kingdom minded way. And we say, how do we bring this book to fruition? It's a lot simpler now because, of course, it's literally free to sign up, and I can walk, my client through this process. This is what you do, because I actually started publishing digitally about 13 years ago. My son was a baby, and I wanted to work from home. And I worked at a medical office where there was no work from home at that time, 13 years ago. And I wanted to at least get my son to about the age of 3, so that if he went to daycare and anything happened, he could verbalize it to me.
Yep.
So I said, I got to work from home. I said, what can I do? I knew I had heard about these ebooks, and I started listening to webinars and trainings. And again, this is where we all can use coaching and training and different people that have gone down the road before us, the Les Browns and the Jim Rohns and the Tony Robbins and the different folks, Lisa Nichols, who have been down this road. And so I'm learning from these webinars and seminars, and it's like, oh, I could do this too. So I started publishing what are called low content books, which are books where I do the framework, you fill in the information. So like a password keeper, a recipe keeper, a music keeper. I have a journal that's been on there for 13 years. That's a lyric notebook where do the framework and you just fill it in for those that are songwriters. So really just digitally helping women to activate, again, this story, not that a story that I'm giving you or that you just thought up, but really something that was already implanted in you. And now we're just ready to go.
Nice. That's awesome. What's some of the myth people believe about digital publishing that you wish you could bust?
I would
Uh,
say, yeah, I would say probably that with some people that they think that it costs, which it doesn't. If you're going through Amazon, you can go through Barnes and Noble, Nook Press. Apple has an imprint. There's various ones that you can use. So you're not limited to just KDP, but it's free. Also, the fact that you have to be some long established author. You don't. You can be brand new. Certainly, you don't have to go through a publishing house. Absolutely not. And it's something where I think, again, where it's such a pivotal time where it's so much more simplistic, and really you just have to get out of your own way, because we have these tools, and I believe that God opens up doors so that we have tools so that his people can make different moves and make an impact and make an imprint in this world. And so I think when God makes these tools available to us, it's critical for us to use them. God does his part, but that's what it is with faith. Like when I had to go through the chemotherapy and the surgery, I was going to have to go through that. So I have to do my part. When we get with God, we have to partner with God.
yeah.
He's going to do his part. He's going to get you through it, but you got to do your own specific piece of this in order for you to get to this victory or to get to this success. Y'all have to get up. I know y'all hustle. I know y'all have a lot of pieces of your real estate business that you have to do, and they can't get done if you don't do it. If you're not doing calls, if you're not doing marketing, advertising, meeting with people, doing listings, going out to the house, I forget the name of it, where they get the house ready, a showing, I believe it's called. There's many pieces
You
to
could
it,
be really
and y'all work
done it
hard
right
to
there.
do
You just told everything you need to do. How to be a successful
it.
in
It's a
like
lot of
30
work.
seconds.
But it's a lot, right? And people don't even understand all that y'all have to do. It may look simple when y'all are in a suit or a dress and looking good, on the billboard or what have you in the advertisement, but it's a lot of work behind the
It is.
scenes. So we have to do our piece of it. And we again have tools now that have helped make it more simplistic for those. So for those who want to publish digitally, understand push past, procrastination, push past yourself being in the way. And the mythology of you have to have a perfect manuscript, or you have to be a perfect writer, or you have to have a lot of experience, or you need to have a lot of money, and just step on into what God is calling you to do.
So for someone whose roadblock would be like, for me, for example, terrible speller, could not say my life. So I'm like, if I can write a story, but it's going to have a lot of spelling errors, and sometimes they're so bad that
Mhm.
spell check just gives up. They're like, we don't have. So is the software program somebody can run their stuff through so that it can be spell checked
Mhm.
and grammar and sentence structure and all that stuff?
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. They have Grammarly. There's programs that are free, there are programs that are paid, but I mean it's not a huge investment. I mean, with anything, when you're starting a business, if you're going to create a book, it's not going to be a zero investment. But now that you can do it digitally, it is very cost effective, because what I even do myself, like for Survivor to CEO, I didn't format it. I don't do formatting. I'm not good at that. So I write it, I spell check it on literally on a Google Word doc. This is how simplistic it is. My book is written on a Google Word doc. I use Canva, but you can also go through a service like Fiverr, where it may cost you as low as $5, $15 to have somebody create a cover for you, beautiful cover. And then so once I did the spell check on my own through Google Word doc, I sent it off to someone on Fiverr, and he formatted my whole book. My book's like 150 pages for about $40. Formatted it, it's beautiful, and then now I just upload it. I just upload it and include the data. So again, God will help us connect to other people. When I first found out about Fiverr, I'd never even heard of it. This was 13 years ago, and I literally, my first book, I contracted someone $5 even. They did my cover. It was beautiful. Sent it off, uploaded it to Amazon, and it went through just perfectly.
Nice. That's see, like you said, you had challenges. There were solutions along the way. People, you find a way to connect, and God connects you to the right people at the right time. Um, and with stories, how can stories of survival and faith, we talked about this before we started, make a huge impact?
Mhm.
How can stories of survival and faith find their place in today's media landscape?
Well, the Bible is full of stories of survival. The stories aren't just for us to reflect on what happened way back when, although that's part of it, but it's to impart within us resilience and faith right now in this moment. Because the Bible tells us that in this world we're going to have tribulations, but be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. So, what we have to have is we have to share our testimony to other people of what we've went through, of the challenges, of, there could have been a time when we felt like, I don't know if I can make it through this, if I can go on. But how we did push through, how we pressed through, how we persevered. When I was laying on that cold, hardwood floor that I talk about in chapter 2, which is like a core experience, a core chapter is chapter 2, where I was laying on a hardwood floor, and this is before I started treatment. And I remember it was very dark. There was just a little bit of moonlight coming through the window. And I literally got down on the floor and I just laid there. And I said, God, am I going to die? He said, no. But he didn't say that I was going to be immediately healed and that I wouldn't have to go through that process, because I did. And that's why we have to share these stories, because God can absolutely heal someone immediately, like the woman with the issue of blood who touched the hem of his garment. But in some cases, he's not going to immediately heal us. We are going to have to walk through a process of the standard of care, of the standard care that's required for this illness or ailment. But again, the stories are what encourage other people right now in 2026, that just as I made it through when I got diagnosed in 2023, and I went through active treatment through the spring of 2025, and now I'm here and I'm taking a daily pill called tamoxifen that I take for 5 to 10 years. But I got through those, the biggest, the most challenging part of my treatment. I made it through those valleys. But that's why we have to share our story. The story you talked about, Andreas, with your dad, the story that you talked about, Heather, with your child. It's critical that we share those specific stories that come from us and our life experience, because there literally is someone, and probably multiple someones, who are right in your same shoes. and they're 2 steps behind you, and they need to know that you're 2 steps ahead of them and that you made it through, and so can they.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, our story, our testimonials, right? As business owners, we we look forward to the testimonial our client gives us so that they can inspire other clients and say, hey, this is a person of trust. In the same capacity, our story is a testimonial for others to be inspired and move forward in different stages of their lives or their own journey. So nicely put, because we look at testimonials everywhere, right? We go to a restaurant, we look at the reviews, right?
Right.
So it's important for us to share that story, that testimonial, for others to be inspired and be able to move forward and share theirs,
Absolutely.
right? It's incredible. We're almost we got 5 minutes in. Um, Wanted to go dive in a little bit more personal and powerful before we wrap it up. What do you wish more people understood about the breast cancer journey?
Well, what I wish, first of all, I will say that it's critical. Get your yearly checkups, mammograms, and also every month do a self check. Whether you're a man or a woman, self check, because if you find a lump, you want to get into the doctor, get them to analyze it. Early detection does save lives. With the breast cancer journey, it's not, of course, a bed of roses. When you get to the other side of it, of course, you're in survival mode. You made it to the other side, so of course you are relishing the survival and that you made it through. But the reality is there are challenges with it, with any illness, where you're going to have to go through some serious treatment. So we don't want to minimize or sugarcoat that that you are going to go through some things as you go through this process, because certainly chemotherapy has never really been considered, a bed of roses, or it's not like, a day on the beach. But it can be very tolerable. I did not have a lot of problems with it. A lot of people tolerate it very well. And I know it can be scary stepping into having to have treatment. But no matter what the treatment is, trust God. If he is telling you that he will get you through this, trust God, whether it's in the moments when you're feeling up, the moments that you're feeling down, but trust God through the process. He has brought many women and also men through breast cancer. And it affects 1 in 8 women, at least 1 in 8 women in
I
America.
know.
So it is a very common thing. It's 1 in 8. And I have, through the process, have found out about women that I didn't even know had experienced breast cancer. But that's why I think it's important for us to share the story and to be ambassadors of early detection, getting your checkups. And again, if it does come back that you have a malignancy and you have to get treatment, understand that there are treatments out there. You can decide, you can add some holistic things, which is what I did. You start eating healthier. But that know that God can get you through any situation and get you to the other side, and to just trust in him.
Absolutely. How how do you take care of your spirit and your soul uh, during that process and afterwards? How do you maintain? How do you take care of it?
A lot of prayer and meditation, a lot of silent time, talking to God. Talking to God about what I was going through, what I was experiencing, and he just continued to reassure me through the whole process, you're going to make it. See, that's the thing, is that sometimes God seems so far off, because when we have more of a religion than a relationship, it's not really a relationship. He's actually our father. And so we have to be able to converse with him and have conversations and say, I'm going through this. This is really bothering me. I feel like I'm out of strength. I feel like I don't know if I can go on. We have to be able to have that conversation with him. And so I did of meditating on the word. I did a lot of just lying there in the middle of the night, early in the morning, talking to God, listening, reading my word, fellowshipping. When I would go to church, when I could only go every other week, boy, I gave it my all. There was something about that fellowshipping. And then I would go down to the altar and probably get prayer every time from my pastor, because I needed that fuel. God was the catalyst that was going to keep me going. The I think I can, I think I can. Well, the I think I can was the Christ as the engine in me. And so I think that part is, there's no way that I would have made it through this process without God. There's absolutely no way. That's why I know I have to be an ambassador and talk about this story, because I know that God was critical for me to make it through this, to become not just the survivor, but to even think about being a CEO. I mean, that takes, to step out into something new and step into faith and say, this is something I'm going to do, this I've never done before. It takes a lot of resilience. It takes a lot of, you have to be able to push past your fear, your reticence, your procrastination, the imposter syndrome. But again, I know that this is not for me, this is for the kingdom.
And for the
Mm.
women who want to read your story, they can scan the QR code. Not just women, anybody who wants to read your story
Thank you.
can scan the QR code on the screen, and you'll instantly be taken to a link where you can purchase the book, as well as in this video, we have the contact information so you can reach out and reach Veronica, and she can help you start your journey from survivor to CEO.
And such an important nugget you left there on having a relationship with with God there, not just asking Him, not just talking to Him, but having that relationship with Him at all times. Right? If you could sit down with Veronica before cancer, what would you ask her? Or what would you tell her?
I would tell her that you're going to have to trust God, because you're going to go through a valley that's really going to challenge your faith. But He is going to get you to the other side of it, like He always has, through every challenge that you've been through. He's got your back and your front and your side.
I can just see her relief from when she was sitting right there on outside of the building and everybody around her. I could see her relief from that conversation you two just had. That is powerful.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap that up, I had three more questions I wanted to ask you.
Mhm.
Uh, what impact are you most proud of so far?
I think pushing through. I think, for my son, he had to see his mother go through this whole process. And mind you, my son at the time it started was 12, maybe 11 and a half. And, seeing his mom have to go through this, and seeing, that I lost my hair. And, for a while I wore wigs. The cover is a wig. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is, praise the Lord, everyone doesn't have their hair grow back. They told me when my hair grew back, it was going to be curly. They call them chemo curls. I rather prefer to call them survivor curls. So my hair came back kind of a different texture, but I'm very happy to have some hair. And that's actually one of the additional things that I'm going to be working on, is natural hair oils that don't contain chemicals, that don't contain sulfates, things that could be cancer causing, estrogen inciting, for other women that, or men that want to strengthen your hair. And so it's just, really the imprint was getting through it, pushing through it day by day, because it didn't happen overnight. It literally was a day by day process of knowing every Thursday I go for chemotherapy. Every single Thursday I go for chemo. And then when I finish chemo, you got to get prepared for, have a port put in. I had to have a port put in first, a surgery, chemo. Then I knew I had to have surgery. Then I had to have infusions, and then eventually I had the port taken out. So that was a third surgery. Then I had to start radiation. So it's a day by day, step by step decision to keep moving forward. And I think that's the journey. Because when it's a really quick journey, it's like, oh, that took place in 5 days. But when you tell someone a year and a half, this was a lot. But you can
Yeah,
make it. You can get through that.
absolutely. And and just from that angle, your son experience, seeing his mom going through what she was going through, completely different angle, right? It's the strength that he must have to be able to just look at you every day, and move forward. Just incredible, incredible.
Praise the Lord.
What legacy do you hope you have lived through your writing, through speaking, through leadership?
Trust God and get going with what He has for you. One of the things when you go through cancer, and again, one thing that is the reality of it, is that every woman is not a survivor. Some women and men are going to pass away. That's with any kind of cancer, serious illness. Some people did not win on what I would say this side, but they're on the other side rejoicing with Christ. But the legacy is to get about our Father's business. So don't hesitate anymore. I was kind of in a holding pattern at the time I got diagnosed with cancer. And one thing cancer will do is it'll get you down to business. Let's go. So it's like I got to be out here coaching, writing, speaking, being an ambassador. I need to be about what my purpose is. So I would say don't wait, don't hesitate, don't sit on it. It's 2026, January, whatever God is calling you to do, go be about it.
Absolutely. It's you just got to take action,
Absolutely.
right? Take action. Everything else will fall into place accordingly. Um, and lastly, how can people connect with you? They want to send you a message. They want to connect with you and be able to do some work together with you.
Yes, they can find me on Facebook, Veronica Holland. You can also message me, Veronica H, as in Holland, at shebuilds.biz. It is under construction, but I have a website, shebuilds.biz. So there should be an initial contact page on there so you can contact me. Hit the contact button there. Like I said, I'm on Facebook under my name, Veronica Holland. And there's also a link in the book. And I just want to thank you all so much for having me on here. I truly do appreciate you. And I just pray, this is because your platform, this is purpose building, this is kingdom building. And so this is really a wonderful tool to help expand the kingdom of God, to give opportunity to folks like me to come on and share our story. You're acting as ambassadors. So I just definitely want to say, God bless you. May He continue to enlarge your territory and expand you, and just keep doing what you're doing because it's phenomenal.
Thank you. We look forward. We are thank you for the opportunity to talk to us today, share your story, your message. This is what it's all about, and we look forward to the opportunity to continue to collaborate and put more episodes here, share more stories, and continue to make an impact.
Amen.
And that, my friends, is Veronica, a living proof that no matter what the adversity, whether it's cancer, crisis, or career upheaval, you can rise with faith, rebuild with purpose, and live with impact. Her journey from survival to chief resilience officer, CEO, is a reminder that pain isn't the end of the story. It might be the beginning of your purpose. Because when you choose to share your truth, your story,